Welcome to week 6 of Behind the Wire with Chaplain Otto Ministries. Here is where we dive into mastering anger management, and we are learning how to embrace constructive communication. I'm your host today, Otto. I hope you got to see last week's video, and if you didn't, you might want to go back and watch that, where we explored the various techniques to navigate challenging interactions. And in that, we challenged our thought process as we learn how to express our emotions. Emotions are a big deal, and they can bring a big deal out of me at times. So understanding these emotions and being able to manage them versus being mismanaged by them is huge. We discovered the power of assertiveness and the significance of controlling our responses and the impact of understanding our thought process. By learning how to express anger respectfully and effectively, you can foster healthier relationships and create positive outcomes. That's why I'm here. I'm here to create positive relationships and healthy outcomes. So thank you so much for joining here today as we continue to learn remedial actions as we move, shoot, and communicate on the battlefield of life. Today's lesson is all about managing conflict. Not conflict on the battlefield like when I was in Afghanistan, but conflict with just general conversations or processes day to day, simple stuff that could make me feel like I'm on the battlefield at times. I didn't realize this, but whenever you are angry, you're dealing with conflict as well. And every time you experience real conflict, you also, to some extent, on some level, feel anger. Talking about that tenseness, tightening up, you can just tell the physiological changes are going on the inside. So I need to make sure that I take that thought and I say, this is not a threat. Because if I interpret that thought as a threat, well, I'm not going to have a constructive conversation. I'm probably just going to create more conflict. So remember, not all anger is bad, and neither is all conflict. We talked last week about a couple examples that previously, like 10 years ago or whatever at the prison, the inmates actually had to pay for electric. And if you didn't have any money, that was definitely a conflict. And these guys were able to go about it the right way, through the state to accomplish what they needed. And because they were upset about something and they didn't think it was justified, they went after that in the right way. And now in Ohio, no inmate has to pay for electric. So there are good reasons to face conflict. There are good reasons to be upset. I was upset when I found out how many veterans were incarcerated, and I decided to do something about it. And that's why I'm teaching inside of the prison, and you get just a little glimpse of what I get to do a couple times a week. You have to understand that conflict is inevitable, and it is something that will happen in life, work, and relationships, like miscommunication between a worker and a boss. Yeah, definitely guilty of that on my end. Or what about an argument between a husband and a wife over finances? Aggravation when a driver cuts you off. Definitely conflicting times. It could be conflicting if you have a disagreement with someone at church and they are too mad and they won't even talk to you. They refuse to talk to you. That's conflict. So whether at work or at home, we encounter situations that challenge our patience and composure. I did not have patience, and boy, did I did not have any type of composure before. But I want to say that this class has helped me to be more patient and to start to learn composure in some very difficult situations. Conflict can either result in problem solving and resolution or all-out war. I am done with the all-out war part. So understanding that how we approach conflict greatly impacts the outcome. You have to have the right set of mind going into the conversation. And just because you have the right set of mind doesn't mean that you will have a peaceful resolution. The same thing that I tell the guys on the inside is it's 50-50. It is 50-50 on them. I mean, they could be peaceful or they could want to continue to cause all-out war. I cannot control their response. However, I can control my response. If I go in like a butterfly and end up stinging like a bee, I wasn't ready for that conversation. So I have to be able to maintain my composure and stay patient even when it's not going the way that I want it to. I do know that having the wrong mindset definitely will bring failure and continuing tension into it. So you have to have the right mindset. because as long as we live on this earth, we will experience conflict, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So what are some good reasons to stand up for conflict? I'll give you some of mine. To stand up for what's wrong. Maybe an example that someone is abusing drugs or selling drugs. Maybe you know somebody that is selling drugs to kids, and that would be a good reason to step up and face conflict and say, not on my block, buddy. You're not going to sell drugs on my block. So that is standing up for what is right. What if you got a speeding ticket and you know you're not guilty? Would it be worth going to court to fight your case, to not have points put on your license, to not have to pay a fee and the potential of your insurance going up because of the points on your license? I mean, that sounds like a really good reason to go fight against something and challenge it because you know that it's wrong. What about to protect somebody? Well, that's a good reason to face conflict. Maybe someone is abusing a child or a spouse, a wife, and you see it happen. Yeah, most definitely. I would put a stop to that. Not here. Not going to happen. You are not going to treat them like that. I could be putting myself in the middle of the beehive, but for something like that, it is most definitely worth it to me. Another reason to face conflict could be the situation. Realistically, like something has to change, or this relationship isn't going to work anymore. And for me and my wife, that was drinking. I had to not drink anymore because if I continued to drink, it would ruin our marriage. So it is not worth me getting a divorce just to drink some beer. And you know what? I'm a lot happier now that I don't drink anymore and I don't make stupid mistakes like I used to. Looking at some more reasons to face conflict, and this one takes me all the way back to 2001. And it's because there is a clear sense of urgency and responsibility. So in 2001, September 11th, I was in 6th grade. And when our country was attacked, I remember them bringing all of us into one room and kind of giving us an idea of what was going on. But as a 6th grader, like I couldn't comprehend that. My mom picked me up and she's driving me home. And it just sounds like I didn't understand, but I'm a very visual person. And when I got home, I put on the TV and I don't know, I just remember this. And it was for hours. I sat in front of the TV, Indian style, just looking at the TV and watching those planes hit the tower and watching them fall and then loop again and again and again and again. And as a 6th grader that day, I said, someday I'm going to serve my country and I'm going to fight for the good of what has happened today. And I did it. I mean, as a 6th grader, this was instilled in me, and now I see why I don't really have a problem facing certain types of conflicts because I want to be a helper, and I guess you don't really see a lot of that out there. The conflicts that I have not been good at are communication, so that is what I am really practicing. Continuing on with other reasons to face conflict, and that could be to seek and experience a resolution and reconciliation, showing a readiness to make peace, to make right your previous response or behavior during a conflict by confessing your faults, resolving anger, and forgiveness. When it comes to facing conflict, one key ingredient that you have to have is compassion. And compassion is the ability to enter the mind and heart of another, to share their sorrow, to really understand them from within. When facing conflict, we face 3 crucial choices, and our answers really make the difference. So in the conflict, are you more worried about building a relationship or winning? Do you want to connect or conquer? Do you want to love or dominate? Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to Ohio State versus Michigan, is it okay if they tie? No, absolutely not. You want them to win. You want Ohio State to win. Why? Because you want them to conquer and dominate Michigan. Maybe next year. But looking at those types of winning, yeah, that's on the playing field. That's a ball game. I'm talking about in life with someone else. So in life with someone else, if I want to have a relationship, I don't need to worry about winning. Maybe the end result isn't what I want, but the end result brings us together. It allows us to connect, and it brings love, because without love, you're not going to connect. And without connections, there are no relationships. So if you want to win, conquer, and dominate, then continue to be selfish and living the way that you are. But you can learn to love, connect, and build healthy relationships. There are times that I can have a extreme selfish attitude, thinking that it's only hard for me. And I have found that hearing other people's stories, honestly, they make my problems irrelevant. And I will not forget this. I'm going to try not to get choked up during this. About my last class at Chillicothe that I had, not this current one, but in 2024, I had a gentleman that was going through the class. And I always ask everybody, hey, you got anything for the good of the group? What's going on? Anything to share? And this gentleman shared some stuff that it broke my heart. It broke tension in the room, and it brought in love and peace because what he was going through. See, there was probably 14 guys in the room, 14 individuals, 14 guys from all over Ohio, 14 guys that have 14 different convictions, and they're at a facility with over 3,000 people, so they might not actually know each other, but they're all together in my class. And what was said was so impactful, and I want to tell you that there was not a dry eye. So this gentleman says, he's like, I am really having a tough week, and I've got a lot on my mind, and I'm continuing to surrender this to God, but my mother is in hospice. And we know what happens when someone goes to hospice. So imagine, being incarcerated, not able to tell your mother in person that you love her goodbye. What a horrible thought, but there's more to it, because he's going through this process, and he found out that his mother had a seizure. And during the seizure, her arms and legs kind of went Indian stylish. And they told him once she passes away that they will have to break both of her arms and legs to put her in the casket. He said, I know she's going to be with God. I know she's going to be with God, but man, does it hurt just thinking about that. And I know that she won't be there, and I know that she won't feel it, but man, I will tell you that day, if anybody had a disagreement against that guy, if anybody had hardship against him for some reason, it melted away. And I've been able to use that story 4 more times because compassion is real. And these guys are in such an environment that compassion really doesn't exist. So to be able to offer an open environment where we can trust and just communicate, that was awesome. Because this guy was going through conflict, and until he mentioned it to the class, he was going through that conflict alone. But after that, he found the love and the love of his brothers. And I want to share a verse with you. And this is a verse, you've probably heard this in weddings. Every wedding I've done, I have read this verse, but I say that this applies to life. And this is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 11. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Love does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And love keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. Love always perseveres. Love never fails. So if you have love, that is a good practical strategy for going into a conflicting situation, because love will cast out all fear and anxiety. So looking at a few steps when you do clash with someone or disagree, one way to prevent this escalation is to take a time out. And that is recognizing what's going on inside of you, because as soon as you hit that conflict, you have to interpret that thought. This is not a threat. This is not a threat. I can get through this. Maybe I need to take just a quick break. Yep, I think it might be best. So with that being said, when you do take your time out, you want to make sure that you withdraw from the person with kind words, indicating that it's best to talk later. Don't storm off and slam the door and say, "Go to hell." Nah, really, that is how people act. Hey, can I get back to you in maybe 10 or 15 minutes? I do want to talk over this. Just right now is not the best time for me, and I want to make sure that I have a little bit of time to process this so that we have good communication. When you withdraw from the person, you want to use kind words, indicating that it is best to talk later. Another strategy for managing conflict is to be able to sum up what the other person says by paraphrasing their demands, viewpoints, and comments. But you're not going to be able to do this if you're not listening to what they say. And if you're not sure what that means, go back to the previous episode, because there's good key information on listening skills when it comes to confrontation. And having these listening skills are going to behoove you in the future because this will show that you are listening, that you actually care, and are trying to understand. That is a big deal because so many people, they don't hear what the other person is saying. They're just waiting for their opportunity to speak. And when you do get to speak, you need to communicate your needs and viewpoints graciously but firm. And that is the assertive process for communication, not the drill sergeant. So what can you do? Think of a scenario of the last time that you experienced conflict and you didn't handle it well. Wherever it was, maybe it was at work, home, road rage, write it down. Write down the scenario of events as they happen and envision how you could have responded by using a timeout and the sum up skills to communicate your viewpoints. Remember, practice makes perfect. And the foundational insights that we have for today is conflict is normal. And when conflict management skills, along with compassion, are applied to disputes, relationships can improve and a successful resolution is possible. That's all for today with managing conflict. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that this content is helpful. Remember, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I'm looking forward to seeing you here next week. And until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and of course, stay blessed.